And here we all are. So thank you for coming along. And let's see how technology works. Once we're just going to do the short version of the 4 immeasurables with refuge prayers to start. And then as this is our 3rd and final session that we have time for, you're on the 4 immeasurables, hopefully we can do a nice meditation within this session as well. Got loads to get through, but you know, I'll just pace it out. I'm not going to force it. There's so much to say about empathic joy and equanimity, but we'll do it comfortably so it's meaningful. I think it's important that we have a meditation. Now, where's Shayla? Is my sound okay?
It's perfect, Ondy.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you.
So let's see if I can start screen sharing without too many problems. So I am screen sharing. Oh, I've got 2 cups of tea. Oh, I'll be running up and down to the toilet this week. Thank you. Oh dear, thank you very much. Right, now this is the one I want. My screen sharing is poised, it says. Why is my screen sharing poised? Oh. Stop share and start again. Hello, oh maybe, yes, let's not look a gift horse. So this is I think it's that one, and I do that, then I do share, and now it's here. God, you've got the magic touch. Thank you. I did the same before, honestly. There we go. And now you see, this is the long one. The other one has disappeared. Sorry, but it isn't. No, the other one has actually disappeared. Oh, well, there you go. We're going to do the long one because that's what I've got here. And now I have to, no, I've lost the long one. Resume share. Ah. Okay. Okay. So we're not doing the short immeasurable. We're doing the long ones, but we won't spend too much time on it because I want to come back to this and make them more of a meditation. Okay. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits that I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were to abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. May they abide in this way. I shall cause them to abide in this way. Guru Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings had happiness and its causes. May they have these. I shall cause them to have these. Guru Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings are free from suffering and its causes. May they be free. I shall cause them to be free. Guru Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were never parted from fortunate rebirths and liberation's excellent bliss. May they never be parted. I shall cause them never to be parted. Guru Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. It won't go away. Share screen again. Go back to basic. That one. Go to advanced, portion of screen. Share. Why won't that go away? It's because that's in the way. Stop share. Yeah. Yeah, please. Make it work. The screenshot is on the PowerPoint because I'm sharing the slide, but the notes are for me. So we want to get rid of it. So that's, yeah. Okay. Okay. So we don't want that, but we want it later. Oh, I'll enjoy one of my cups of tea. That's the one I want, the PowerPoint. Sorry. It's for the conventional Ondy and the optional. Well, there you go. PC. See, this is what I want. Oh, here. This is what I want. Go back to Zoom. I want to share the screen, but only that. So if I go back to Zoom, it's gone. Or do we go here? How do we get Zoom again now? Yeah. And it normally works. So I go to basic and I go to this, then I go to advanced. No, then I go to advanced, sorry, but because I need the portion of the screen. Then I go to share. Oh, and it works.
Great job.
Nice. Thank you so much. We got there in the end between us. Okay. So here we go. You see, empathic joy. Let's start with that because that's just happened. Empathic joy, hasn't it? Because it was very, very easy for us to rejoice. Why? Because we were attached. We were all attached, me super attached. So much so that I can feel the stress in my body, which I always do at these moments with technology, waiting for it to happen. Even though I know you're all completely patient and lovely and you know, aren't holding it against me really. But then you too, you see how easy that was for you to generate empathic joy because you're invested in it, which means we have an attachment to it. So that's very simple. So when we start having a look at the developing the immeasurable quality of empathic joy, which we're starting with, we know that there are many, many different situations in which we struggle to be happy for others. Yeah. So that's kind of what we're looking at today, but that was very useful, because what's happening in our life all the time are these little scenarios, and it's the little scenarios that we overlook. You know, it's only when something gets mega big and we're having a real problem with it that we go, oh, you know, I need to practice this, I need to practice that. But the little scenarios are just interesting, because they're a good starting point, because again, there's no aversion. There's no aversion happening. So we can look and go, oh, you know, that was because, and then we can start to build up. Because obviously in a scenario like this, it's not going to be a big deal to anybody what's happening, because I'm not going to be sent to prison if I don't get this done. And you're not going to be mega angry and take up arms or whatever if it doesn't happen. But those are the extremes that we work with in our life, and we never know what's coming next. So if we practice with the small stuff, then when the big stuff happens, we'll be prepared. I think that's always very useful. So obviously, we've got this list, haven't we? Love, compassion, empathic joy, and equanimity. And in terms of developing the meditational dhyanas, those states in which we are imbued, everything about us is imbued with that quality, then we need to build. We build upon love, we build then upon compassion, we build on empathic joy, and then we build on equanimity. But when we're practicing like ourselves in situations where we're not bodhisattvas, well, how do I know what you are? But, you know, for many of us, we feel kind of ordinary. So when we're in an ordinary state of mind, practicing these in situations like we've just experienced, or any other time in your life, is going to help you if and when in this lifetime you do go into meditation retreat and you do sit down in order to develop the dhyanas. So that's kind of when you need that order, really. That's why they're put in that order. But we all know from experience is that equanimity is sometimes put first. And the Dalai Lama talks in detail. I'm pointing over here as if he's sitting on my shoulder. Maybe he is. But this lovely book for anybody here who I haven't shown this to, In Praise of Great Compassion, is it a wisdom publication? It is. It's a wisdom publications by the Dalai Lama and Thubten Chodron. And that goes into great detail of why these distinctions. It's a beautiful book. And I beg your pardon. Oh, In Praise of Great Compassion. I'll leave it here. Oh no, we're not having lunch, are we? I mean, you know, we haven't got a whole day, but you can have a look at it at the end if you wish. Yeah, yeah. So he makes, His Holiness makes that distinction, which is again more to do with how you're practicing it in retreat and in meditation. Okay, I think, and I've talked before about this, that actually I've discussed with other students as well who I've done this with, and we haven't had that possibility in these sessions this time, but they've actually discussed that equanimity kind of makes sense in one way, because you're evening out the playing field. You know, you're going, okay, no enemies, no strangers, no neutral people. They're all sentient beings, and then we can love them. And then we can develop compassion, and then we can develop empathic joy. So it works in that way. But in another way, in terms of building up this generation of power that we have within us, of this incredible qualities, love kind of gets us started. You know, to want other people, to want other beings to be happy, gets us started, and then we relate to compassion. We don't, obviously that builds upon that. We don't want them to suffer, and then we go into empathic joy. So let's particularly look at this now, and we're going to need all day if I go at this rate. So let's move on to the characteristics of empathic joy. So yes, I had this quotation which stayed in my mind on the Christian teachings, which is beautiful. Yeah. Rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn. And I think it takes the quality of empathic joy to another level, because obviously it's not joyous to mourn. But actually, I think that really makes it deeper, because if we're feeling for others, then whatever they're going through, we have empathy for them. So clearly with empathic joy, we're rejoicing because, you know, people have better rebirths, they've got the Dharma, they've got all those things that make us joyous for them. So therefore, why would we, you know, there's no basis for mourning, common sense wise, but in terms of creating our feelings, if we develop that quality of empathy for all beings, then yes, it becomes something that we can use for mourning, for grieving, for feeling for. It's that sympathetic, empathetic quality. I hope that makes sense. Maybe it will make a bit more sense as we go on. So we're completely moving away from self-cherishing, and we're actively engaging with other beings, not just their happiness, yeah? Not just their happiness, but with other beings' feelings, yeah. So let's think about what stops us from having that, really, and we'll go into more detail with that. You know, this emotion, this destructive emotion, we could say, although in some situations, maybe it's a basis for building something else. Certainly is for us, because if we feel jealousy, we know we've then got to practice rejoicing or feeling happy for others. So let's move on. So I don't want to. Yeah, we'll come to that a bit more later. So as I've done with the others, I've looked at, well, you know, what kind of person is this easy for? Because some of us find different qualities easier than others. So helpful human attitudes. Now then, self-esteem. If you've got good self-esteem, then you're not going to be measuring yourself up against others so much. You know, you're not going to be looking at them with jealousy or envy so much. So good self-esteem is really important. Yeah? Before we can rejoice for others, we've got to feel good about ourselves. And that includes, you know, not always kind of thinking, oh, you know, look at, I think somebody mentioned this, oh, they seem to be really good practitioners and always doing this and always doing, and there's a sense of competition coming in. Yeah. I think it was you, wasn't it? I'm just saying, I thought it was you at another session you brought that topic up. Doesn't matter. It's all right. It's okay. Forget it. maybe not because you were feeling it, but you brought it up as an example. Yeah. So, you know, actually in many education establishments now, we're going against the competition in such an extreme way that nobody bothers, entering sports day because everybody gets a prize. It's quite hard to overcome that sense of being first, being a winner. Yeah. But and also you find this in business as well, terribly competitive, rather than sharing and rejoicing and feeling happy and it being like a fun game. There's a sense of, well, look at their figures, we need to get better. So and that, of course, you can say makes more money, but does it make more happiness? Yeah? Does it make more happiness? So, we're looking at the happiness quotient. What country is it? Bhutan. Bhutan. Yeah, where that's where they have the happiness quotient. How happy are our people? Yeah, which is very interesting. Don't know how it's going, but there you are. Okay. So if we've got that kind of attitude, and it's much more of a lighter play with life, isn't it? It's lighter. It's not, and it could also be to do with your conditioning, because a lot, and you see this a lot now, certain cultures really push their children, probably to bring them out of poverty, but they push and push and push and get terrible levels of stress and anxiety. So in order to be the best, in order to be winners, not losers, yeah? You're a failure. You're a failure, son, because you didn't get 100%, or something like that. It's like a huge, huge pressure. So this is a much lighter attitude. You do your best, for sure, and then if somebody, yeah, that's great, good for them. And you measure yourself against yourself, your own self-esteem, yeah, not others. Okay, so now we're getting to the enemies of empathic joy. So if we overvalue worldly success, then we get attached to others' careers and successes. And we can think here of the, we can think here of the celebrity cult, yeah, that ranges from being fans to obsessive stalkers, yeah? How much we don't value us, and how we look out there and think there are other people who, if we attach ourselves to them, it will kind of rub off, the glitter will rub off, and we invest in their life, not our own. That's a real sickness of low self-esteem, isn't it? It really is. So it's fun to be a fan. And you often find this interestingly amongst teenagers, don't we? All the idols go up on the wall and everything, and it's because they're trying to find themselves, and they're relating. Oh, I relate to this fashion. I relate to that pop star, and then it starts to bring out their identity. So the healthy way is that eventually they will have their own self-esteem, and it will just be a friendly memory or something that marked your youth. But you can see that actually, for many people, their happiness, their excitement is all to do with others. And that's a great example of the celebrity scene, because it's massive, isn't it? Do you still have things like the Kardashians? Yeah. Things like that. And, we giggle at it, but there are people who take it very seriously. And it kind of, controls them. So we lose a sense of balance at what's important and spend our energy on kind of pointless pursuits such as social media. Yeah. Which again, it's all balance. There's a bit of fun, but again, if we're just following others, and we're even encouraged to do that. If you get a TikTok account, you could get look at this guru. He's got 20,000 followers. Oh, if I put myself on, how many followers? So you can everybody is, you know, and there is even a teacher thing, you know, where you're trying to get, and again, your motivation has to be so pure, because if it is to engage with people and help them, then that's fantastic. But if those people then become kind of reliant on you, that's attachment. Yeah? And then if anything happens, then it's such extreme aversion, it becomes malicious. So it's all out there for us to look at this. So the direct enemy is this giddiness, this worldly happiness. So now then, I think you'll all agree that the indirect enemy of jealousy we'll probably talk more about, but also of boredom. That's an interesting one, isn't it? There's kind of lack of interest in what's going on out there, and not interested if somebody, oh look, you know, they're going on this great holiday. None of it matters. It's a bit related to a nihilistic attitude, you know, which can take us into boredom. It's a complete lack of interest in what's going on out there. Doesn't involve me. And again, we can see examples of some people, perhaps a bit introverted, whose main source of fun is their computer. Yeah, it's all happening here. And then mum or dad will come in the room, or somebody, and they'll just go, yep, leave me alone, basically. Leave me alone with this, because everything out there is not worth bothering about. That's quite an enemy. It's low self-esteem. Again, it all comes back to that. So I think we've done this a bit. Idolizing people. This is low self-esteem. These are all examples of having low self-esteem. Overestimating others means you underestimate yourself. Limitations. Oh, I could never do what they do. I can only. So we look at our limits rather than our potential. And laziness, which is a bit like the boredom, isn't it? And wanting to do virtue or not wanting to do virtue or only little, suggesting that actually being virtuous takes energy, takes effort. So we get involved here with one of the perfections, which is joyous effort, which is specifically about, you know, sitting down on your seat and doing your meditation, yeah, but is also about, you know, being involved in decisions and not being bothered to think about the ethical outcome of what people are going to do or what you're going to do. So we can get lazy in that respect. Okay, so let's have a look at jealousy. So the distinction between jealousy and envy, as far as I'm aware, is jealousy is more about people, whereas envy is more about stuff. That's how I kind of understand it. They're very close. Jealousy, fear of losing a person, or dislike of someone who you feel is better than you in some way, wishing to be like others. So that's close to the giddiness, isn't it? Yeah? Or the excitement of being involved in other people. Envy is wishing to have what others have, wanting a thing one does not have. Okay, so what these lead to is things like criticism and judgment. So how do we counteract it? Well, the antidote to despair and cynicism is empathic joy. It's also compassion, so they kind of double up a bit here. but Schadenfreude, you know that expression, that world weariness. It's a bit like the boredom. Schadenfreude. It's kind of a phrase that isn't just German, it's kind of known, but maybe not so much. So what happens with jealousy, if we want to think of the antidotes here, is that we're seeing something and we're having resentment that they're happy. It's upsetting us a bit. I'm going to give a great simple example. I hope you don't mind. Well, Dawn wasn't there, but actually Dawn was with me at the beginning. We went to Ojo Calientes in Santa Fe as a special treat, the hot springs. So anyway, we had a lovely time. Dawn had to go, left me for a while Friday afternoon. And what happens on Friday afternoon there, it seems to me, is that people start to celebrate the weekend. So in the lovely, peaceful hot tubs, along comes quite a few groups of young women with their margaritas and their white wines, and they're, you know, giggling and all the rest of it. And I'm sitting there, oh. And then after a while, I'm thinking, no, come on, Ondy, they're happy. You should be rejoicing at their happiness. But the problem is that they were spoiling my expectation and attachment to the idea that it was going to be, I already had, that we were going there, it was going to be very peaceful, very relaxing in nature, and then suddenly there was a horde of giggly women. You know, this is me judging, yeah. But it's very simple. It wasn't like a big deal, but you know, how many years have I been practicing? Immediately resentment. Maybe if I go over there, I won't be able to hear them. You know, that kind of. I go to the saltwater pond. Maybe it's quiet down there. This whole sense of being attached to my projection of what I was going there for, and then it turning out to be a different experience, giving me the perfect opportunity to rejoice at their happiness. So that wasn't jealousy. There was nothing there about, I wish I was one of those young women. I don't think. It was more to do with their spoiling my fun. Yeah. So this is when, you know, empathic joy comes in. It's very superficial. It's not at the level of, you know, having empathic joy for people's great rebirths and practicing the Dharma. It's more on an ordinary level, but this is where we can practice it. Yeah. And I know there's a story whereby this meditator, this guru sends his student to go into retreat. And he goes into retreat, and there's a village nearby, and there's lots of kind of singing while they're looking after the animals. And he goes back to his teacher and he says, I can't do retreat there. You know, it's too much noise. Yeah. And so he sends him to another place a bit further away on its own. And, you know, it's very, very cold. That's right. It's very, very cold. And he has to have this fire. And he said, even the crackling of the fire is disturbing me. So he sends him further away to this cave, and then he says, peace, at last I can meditate. And then this lone sheep starts baaing. And he comes out of his cave and he says, how can I become? And then he goes to his guru and says, have I not been teaching you? Yeah. There's no such thing. For a start, there's no such thing as silence, you know, if we're going to look at that. And then we're in a world of sentient beings, and there's always going to be sentient beings. And if we see everything as an interruption, a disturbance to what we're projecting on should be the perfect conditions, we're never going to find it. So the obstacle is not external. It's in our minds. So that was a bit like me at Ojo Calientes. So Okay, so here we are, immeasurable empathic joy. What is it? So this is the empathic joy, which is really what is intended. You know, that we have perfect human rebirths, and we rejoice in the fact that people have perfect human rebirths. Yeah? That they have all the conditions and that they are happy to practice the Dharma, and we want that for them. We also want people to recognize that their happiness in temporary pursuits is precisely that, and that genuine happiness comes from practicing the Dharma, and we don't want them to lose it. Yeah? So that is beautiful, you know, isn't it? It's just beautiful. We don't, but when we are in a community, for instance, Sangha, some of the things we've got to watch is a sensitivity towards others, because we can get, especially when we find the Dharma, we can get quite evangelical and start, you know, telling people who aren't practicing the Dharma or looking at them as if, you know, they're lost souls. And they haven't even got a soul, so they're lost. And we can talk to other people within our Sangha community and be quite judgmental, find fault in their practice, find fault in, oh, she said that, she's not practicing anymore. But we do it. I've been there. I've lived in a community of 80, 80 Sangha, a lot of lay, and quite a lot of ordained people. And oh, that is a melting pot. I mean, you really learn from each other, but it's not all, you know, like being in paradise. It's really not, because all our attitudes are still there. And we are thinking, to begin with, especially, that we're quite special. It's quite, you know, I found the Dharma. I'm a Buddhist, you know, all these things. So that's the balance I mean, is that we're all at our own stage. At some points in our lives, we will have massive learning, lots of opportunity. And again, we used to think that at Manjushri Institute, because it was extraordinary. We had 2 Geshis there. They were always visiting lamas. I mean, we had Lama Yeshe, we had Lama Zopa, we had Song Rinpoche, we had all sorts of lamas visiting. And they were throwing initiations at us, literally. None of us knew what we were doing. We were all sitting there, you know, with our tantric initiations and all the rest of it. And then when you said, well, I don't really understand what I'm doing, they'd say, it's a good imprint. It's a good imprint for you, you know, some point in the future. And some of us did. Some of us did. But there was definitely a sense in this, what felt like a really solid community that was living there, going to teachings every day. Stuff was going on. Geshe studies, you know, or diff pujas, every day stuff was going on. And there was this sense that it was permanent. And that's what we'd entered. We'd entered this perfect environment for studying the Dharma. But like everything else, it wasn't. And then, you know, you could look maybe 10, 20 years later, and where were those lamas? Well, 2 had died. Yeah? And there was going to be a long time before those little babies were found and then started to grow into their next selves. A lot of responsibility placed on Lama Zopa. Then there was the schism. So one of the Geshis went off grid, you know, and that's how it was. And suddenly you didn't have access to teachings, and your kids were growing up, and you were having to get a job and blah, 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 and you didn't have time to practice. Not meditation. So your practice had to be in the world. And that's what most of us are in, isn't it? You know, we're lay people in the world, practicing. enormous opportunities. How many people do we find who have that we can generate genuine empathic joy for? You know, was this community, which is fantastic and is growing and hopefully flourishing. People up in the gods, haven't got a picture of you yet, but there you go. We're all here. So we need, it's really important to encourage a very harmonious, transparent, patient, tolerant Sangha community. And by Sangha, I'm not talking, you know, those who have achieved, I'm not talking Arya beings, those who have attained emptiness, realized emptiness. I'm talking kind of comfortable Sangha, as you are, as we are here. We are practicing the Dharma. We're hoping to bring people in. We don't evangelize, or anyway, that word. We don't try and make people, what is the word? I've forgotten it. Yeah, the one when you kind of knock on people's doors and try to get them to.
Is it indoctrinated?
Everybody's saying that one anyway. You all know what I mean. We don't do that. Evangelize. Oh, evangelize is better than evangelize. Yeah. Sorry, you probably said it. The echoes for me is not good. Anyway, that one. We don't do that as Buddhists. We don't try and force others. So we have to be by ourselves examples. Yeah, and then people are kind of attracted. So traditionally, it's asked 3 times. You know, that if somebody says, oh, what is this Buddhism? You know, and then the 3rd time they ask, they really want to know. And then they're interested, and then you can kind of hook them in. Yeah. I think that's enough of that. What have I got written down here? Oh, we know that. Okay. So how do we meditate on it? So we need to move on to equanimity. And what we'll do, I think, at least, is to do this meditation on empathic joy and equanimity together. Yeah. So we start with ourselves, thinking how amazing it is that we've got the Dharma, that we never want to lose it. That's important, because we kind of say, you know, may I never be parted from wonderful teachers and the Dharma all the time, huge imprint on our consciousness. So when we die, we're creating the causes to find it again quickly. Yeah? Next life, if possible, next human life, although that's meant to be very difficult, but anyway. Then we go to someone who's dear and who is a happy person, and you're glad that they're happy. But we can focus. We can focus on perhaps somebody who has found the Dharma recently, because in a way you're kind of forming a little psychic connection, so that you might be able to support them. All their past, everything that's happened that's good to them, all their future happiness. Then you do it with a neutral and a hostile person. So again, 2 ways of doing it. One for somebody who is just happy, yeah, but having the wish that they find the Dharma, yeah. And another is for somebody who has the Dharma and really looking how hard they practice and what a great person they are, and really being happy for them. And this will counteract any kind of jealousy, competitiveness that abides in very kind of subtle ways within us. Yeah, because it is easy to go, oh, she gets to see Lama so much. I never get to see. And all this kind of stuff goes on inside of us. And it doesn't last long, but it's on the consciousness. There's a little bit of resentment, or again, low self-esteem. Okay. Okay, so yes, we know about that. Bringing emptiness in, we'll do that in the meditation. And there it is. And let's move on to equanimity. I bet they're both cold now, these cups of tea. Right, equanimity. What a topic. Equanimity, the foundation in developing bodhicitta. Yeah? We start with equanimity. So, completely tranquil, even-minded, towards happiness and unhappiness. So whatever comes your way, you're there like this. Yeah. Okay. The sheep is interfering with my meditation. How do we do that? We have compassion. Yeah? So we have love, we have compassion, we have all those qualities, and that helps us to have this tranquility towards whatever comes our way. Pleasure and pain in all circumstances, whether meeting friends or enemies. That's so tough. Yeah. So obviously we try to develop equanimity again where it's easy. And then sort of notice if we're amongst people, yeah, like I should have had in the hot tub. Again, great opportunity for equanimity. Just notice it. This is how it is. This is how it is. Pretty mindful approach. Yeah? Not having any anxiety or worry, backwards or forwards, just presence. This is my circumstance now. Whatever comes my way, I'll deal with it with equanimity. What a fabulous way to live. Really, if we can develop that quality. Okay, we got all that. Functions to find all beings equal. Yeah, let's just go through this briefly. I'm reading it, but sorry about that. Impartiality towards all beings. Now, what we don't want to do is to mistake the fact that, for instance, if we're family people, we know we're partial to them. Yeah. And that's okay. It's completely fine. You're going to love them. They're your responsibility. There's going to be more invested in your family for sure. There's bound to be attachment. But if we can, within those family relationships, perfect place to start, have a sense of, well, you want other people to be as happy and you're as interested in other people. It's just that you're not so involved with them. Yeah. So they're out there. You meet them occasionally, you know, or you're not as in contact with them as you are with your family. But when you meet them, you get a sense of, well, and I do this with my family, thinking, well, you know, rather than being excessively proud or excessively concerned, or just kind of, you know, they're a human being, they'll work it out. I can help them in this way. I can do this, that, and the other. But in the end, they're another human being. And then that sort of brings the balance out a bit. Because we can really see in close family relationships that the attachment is so great that we can cause more harm than good in certain situations by being over-attached or having strong aversion to people who are upsetting them. And then you get, you know, family feuds. We have, I don't know if you know this, but we have this soap opera in England called EastEnders. You know about it, do you know? EastEnders. Anyway, it's a soap opera. It's on several times a week. and they're very Cockney, which I kind of relate to because my origins come from Cockney roots. Cockney is that, well, we'll talk like this, don't we? You know, it's that kind of, yeah. And there's this one family called the Mitchells, and the Mitchells, we look after family. We look after our family, and everybody else is an enemy. And it's just brilliant to watch because you think, well, actually, that's how most of us operate, you know. And I can remember taking my mum to meet the Dalai Lama many, many years ago, wanting her to be super impressed and everything. And when she came out, and she said, well, and he'd been doing this great teachings on Bodhicitta and everything. And when she came out, she said, well, all you can do really is look after your own, isn't it? That's kind of, that is what we do. We have to just look after. We do have to look after our own, but it's understanding that attitude, which maybe would dissolve the mafia. Who knows if they did, if they took teachings on equanimity. I don't know. Oh dear. Okay. So let's go seeing other. Yeah, we've got all that. We're fine with that. When it fails, it produces. Yeah, so when it succeeds, it reduces attachment and aversion. We've got that from those examples. When it fails, it produces indifference and apathy. Yeah. So it's just not caring. And there will be no love, compassion, or empathic joy either. So all those qualities kind of have to be in there with equanimity. It's kind of supporting it from behind. It's pushing it forward, isn't it? I've got the love, I've got the compassion, I've got the empathic joy. Oh yeah, equanimity. That works. Yeah. That's what we're after. Okay. Yeah. So lack of ego-centered opinions. It's inclusive equanimity, not selective. The ego needs to feel self-existence. And in being self-existence, it labels friends, enemies, and strangers. Yeah. The ego, all of us with our egos, we're doing that battle, aren't we? Of understanding the nature of self-cherishing and self-grasping. So that ordinary view is, you know, you can come in because you like me. I agree with you. We're the same. So you can be part of my ego-centered world. And then all the others are like, you disagree, you frighten me. I don't understand your religion. We'll keep you out. Yeah. So there's a lot of work to be done in having these characteristics of a lack of ego-centered opinions. Because let's face it, we're all sitting here thinking we've got a better religion than others. A lot of us will. We kind of do. But we've got emptiness. God, creation, you kidding? But you know, there's so much in other religions. This struggle to bring us all together. There's a lot of ego-centered opinions amongst the great religious leaders. This is such a struggle to bring us together, and even within Buddhism, otherwise we wouldn't have had sectarianism or schisms, which of course I've seen, which is deeply shocking. So until we have achieved emptiness, no matter where we are in terms of status and our role within whatever religion or culture, we are human being and ego-centered. That is going to create a big obstacle right until I was talking in the car to Christopher and Dawn about, sorry, I keep bringing you in, but you've been there this morning. And we were talking, oh gosh, I've thrown myself off course now. What were we talking about? Yeah, we were talking about something specifically. Yeah, about teachers. We were talking about, that's it. We were, thank you. We were talking about the fact that that there exists even now so much perhaps patriarchy within religions and unequal opportunities and respect, etc. And we were talking in general about that, but the examples that I wanted to bring forward are the last temptation and the maras that Buddha experienced before he became enlightened, and the story of Jesus being tempted by Satan and being taken up to this roof. You can fly, you can have this, you can have this world, you can dominate the world. And that was his kind of last temptation. And of course he refused. Well, not of course, but he refused. Yeah? And then with Buddha, he's sitting under the Bodhi tree, and you've got all these maras coming at him. Well, maras are temptations, and whether you think they were real spirits and real, evil women trying to tempt him and seduce him, or whether you just see it as mental afflictions before he became enlightened, because he had achieved such power. And Dawn reminded me of the image of the arrows coming, and that they just turned into flowers. And that is deeply symbolic of the fact that, right up until after achieving this bhumi and whatever we're doing in the bodhisattva, practice and whatever we're trying to achieve, right up until achieving emptiness, there will be temptations. There will be temptations of power. There'll be, because we have so much power when we do become enlightened, and also just before we become enlightened, so much power. And so we need such incredible courage as they did, which is why they're extraordinary religious leaders. Yeah? They did not succumb to any temptations. So until that point, everyone has ego and is subject to judgments of others. Right, good. Okay. So here's some self-esteem things. Direct enemy of equanimity. Cold, uncaring apathy. There's an image for you. Okay, so I've listed some of the aspects of this direct enemy. And let's look at some of these. So a lack of trust in others. When we don't open our hearts to others, it's hard for them to open their hearts to us. Somebody has to make the first step. And so in that way, we never discover what others struggle with, because they're likely to be the same problems as we have. So real communication will simply prove there's nothing to be ashamed of to begin with, because we all have similar problems. We're all humans seeking happiness and the causes of happiness. So a lack of trust in others, that can happen in a sangha. Yeah, transparency is really important. Transparency in decision making, everything. Just trust that we can handle it. We don't want to be nannied. We may be in a hierarchy where we have, this is the FPMT organization, this is Lama Zopa, spiritual director, then there's all these other things. And things go on, and we make mistakes, and we don't want to feel like we shouldn't feel that or do that or think that, or we shouldn't challenge that. There needs to be transparency. And I don't know if you were there in the session when I was talking about levelers. You know, levelers are the people who say it how it is. It's rational, it's not emotional, and it's bringing stuff out that needs to be aired. So that all comes into a lack of trust. We don't want to be nannied. We're not protecting our children, you know, from the nasty world. We need to know, and then, you know, that trust in others, they'll trust us. That's the thing. If we're not open, then people don't trust us. Negative worldview. Let's have a look at that one. That's up on the other side. Yeah, well, a negative worldview, the cold, uncaring apathy, isn't it? It's like if we're negative, we're looking in a mirror, really, and we see it's a negative self view. So again, so much comes back to this self-esteem. It's massive, isn't it? So note that the world is often a mirror of what we think of ourselves. A negative world image and negative self-image can be two sides of the same coin, and reflects an expectation of an unrealistic perfect world, leading to a negative view of others, leading to contempt and that cold, uncaring apathy. So a lack of empathy, let's just have a look at this. Well, lack of empathy is the psychopath. Yeah. They manipulate everything and everybody very, very cleverly because, I don't know. Anyway, that's the psychopath. But we don't have to be a psychopath to lack empathy. We can just be a bit self-interested, selfish. We've given up on others. The only way to survive in this world is to look after number one. Yeah. So that's what we do. And if we look after others, it's because they look after us, or we can see that they will look after us if we need it, or they're important to us. Everything comes back to us. So that's the lack of empathy. Mistakenly, very mistakenly, because there's the paradox in Buddhism, isn't there, that genuine happiness comes from caring for others. And the ego-centered view is that, no, I have to look after myself. And may well come out of very tragic conditioning, but we're stuck there. Okay. Indirect enemy, attachment and anger. Of equanimity. Well, that's obvious. Anger is just another word for aversion. Okay. So all this is looking at, again, the ego-centered view. So this is a nice quotation, quite simple. If there is a self-existent I, then there is the discrimination of self-existent others. That was Paul Den Chodrog. So how useful is the view of emptiness? It's absolutely crucial, because it is because we see ourselves as self-existent that we are then labeling others as stranger, enemy, and friend. Yeah. If we have the view of emptiness, there's no such thing. So attachment and hatred arise from discriminated partisanship with others. And all negativity arises from acting under the influence of these negative minds. We don't have to look far. I'm not going into huge detail because I want to do a meditation with you. We know all that. We're okay with that, aren't we? Let's get in. So what does immeasurable equanimity look like? Non-discrimination, isn't it? And the important phrase here, I think, is understanding that all limited beings are equal. we're limited beings. Limited beings are those who don't have the realization of emptiness. We're limited by our basic ignorance, even if we intellectually know. If we haven't realized it, we're not fully imbued with it. We're just picking on it occasionally and reminding ourselves. So, yeah, and that will help us. That will help us. You know, with the stranger, it's not such a big thing, is it? But with the friend, we don't want to. We want to take care that our love doesn't become attachment for a friend. Yeah. And we want to make sure that when we're thinking about our enemy, that we do apply the view of emptiness. That really helps them to apply the view of emptiness to an enemy. Okay, how are we doing? I think we need to do a meditation. We know that, don't we? And we combine it with emptiness. This is interesting. So there's two types of equanimity: the feeling of equanimity, and then the qualities of what is called even-minded equanimity. Let me give you a bit of information about that. So Buddhicitta identifies 10 types of equanimity, and these are the prominent 6. So the first one, the feeling of equanimity, is a neutral feeling, neither pain nor pleasure in virtue or non-virtue. That doesn't mean nothing. You will experience equanimity. It's not like you're going, well, that's a bit boring. It's not like that. The second one, even-minded equanimity, balances the mind and mental factors and makes our responses rational. It's present in virtuous minds, but not non-virtuous. And then of even-minded equanimity, equanimity of purity, we're talking about the dhyanas here, the meditative states of stabilization of that quality. The equanimity of the 4th dhyana, because it's the 4th, you know, on the list that we practice, can be overshadowed by investigation, analysis, joy, and bliss of the previous 3 dhyanas. So if we are in the 4th dhyana and we are practicing building upon love, compassion, and empathic joy, it can be overshadowed. So we're talking about subtle levels of meditation here. In the 4th dhyana of equanimity, the equanimity of purity, they're absent. That's why it's called purity. So because all those factors are absent in the meditative dhyana, it's called the equanimity of purity. The second one, the divine abode of equanimity, it differs from purity in respect of its object. Divine abode of equanimity arises towards sentient being. Divine abode is a dhyana. So because we are focusing, the object is equanimity, the experience in the dhyana arises towards sentient beings. It's called. The third one, awakening factor of equanimity, is the balance among the various factors of the mind that realizes nirvana. It's one of the 37 harmonies with awakening. And those are qualities that bodhisattvas and other yogis cultivate. And the 4th one, 6-limbed equanimity, this keeps the mind balanced when it comes into contact with attractive or unattractive objects, and only arhats have perfected this type of equanimity. So I'm telling you this because we then see, whoa, you know, that's levels of achievement of equanimity, and we're practicing it in quite a basic way, nevertheless an important one. Okay, so we know that when we do the meditation, yeah, we've got these 4 lines, and we start with reflecting on the disadvantages of the opposites and the advantages of equanimity and empathic joy. And then we've got the wish, how wonderful, an aspiration, may they, a resolution, I shall, and the request, please, I need help, right? So that's what we're doing when we focus on these and we wish to intensify the experience of them. And through this, doing meditations the way we're going to do it any minute now, our equanimity becomes stronger and more stable. And so does our confidence to achieve these. Right, so packed it in a bit, I know, but I don't want to give you questions and answers because it's going to take from the meditation. But if there's anything really outstanding, maybe at the very end, you can ask me. Yeah, you've only had an hour and a half to do this. I'm sure you've got some questions. So let me take you back now, if I can find it, and you can settle into meditation while I find my little guiding. And you do some mindfulness and, you know, just get into the zone, and I will make sure I am doing everything I should be doing. So think of your motivation as well. Okay. So that's a lot of information. So we want clarity in our minds of these immeasurable qualities which we can take to the very end of samsara, to take us further into realizing emptiness. And proceeding on the bodhisattva path to bodhicitta, to realizing bodhicitta. And keep these with us in our hearts all the time. So while we're doing this meditation, we're going to focus on the qualities, not the words, but remembering, having that wish, that aspiration, sense of responsibility, and the request for help. We know we need that. So first of all, we think of the disadvantages of lacking empathic joy. Just think about that for yourself. So you're processing what you've picked up today, what you already know, and making it clear for yourself. The disadvantages of not having empathic joy. and the advantages of developing it. And first of all, we can focus on ourselves. All those wonderful reasons why we can be happy about having the Dharma, having found it, being able to practice it, qualities of happiness. Just go with it for a few minutes on your own. And really reinforce that strong feeling of so fortunate. And now think of somebody in your community who's very dear to you, who you know practices the Dharma. And just generate that feeling again. For them. You never want them to be separated from it, that you want them to have another precious human rebirth after this one. All of those feelings just generate very strongly. Feel your heart burst with joy for them. How incredibly fortunate, how wonderful that they've got this in their life. What might be if they hadn't found the Dharma? Now think of somebody who's neutral to you. Somebody you know, anyone, a neighbor, somebody who serves you in a shop. Or maybe somebody you don't know, you've heard about, who practices the Dharma. Can be a Dharma practitioner, of course. But just again, extend how wonderful it would be if they had the Dharma. All that happiness was in their lives. Heartfelt. And then on someone who you feel a little bit hostile towards, perhaps, or very. You're having lots of problems with at the moment. They really rile you. It would be very useful if this was one of your Sangha, somebody at the moment you're having problems with. Perhaps you judge. And just really put your empathic joy right out there and embrace them in your hearts. Remembering we're all limited beings doing our best. And dissolve all those beings into your heart and just let it explode with this feeling for others. I'm so happy. So happy for others' happiness. Just before we turn our minds to equanimity. And contemplate the disadvantages of lacking equanimity. What does it do to people? And the advantages of having it. Feel contrast. So you really value it in your hearts. So when we meditate on these three types of beings, we're breaking down the barriers by contemplating all that they have been to you and wishing them all happiness. So here we're bringing in not only this life views, but we know that equanimity is when we start to recognize that all beings have been our mother and the wish to repay them. That road to bodhicitta. So it's absolutely essential to break down the barriers of all these limited beings like yourself and recognize our interdependence. So start with a friend. And think about all the reasons you are attached to them. They like you, they agree with you. They've got the same taste as you. They're your age group, whatever it is. And then we bring in the stranger. Float them in on that cloud if you wish. All sitting in front of you. Why am I not interested in this being's welfare? Who has been my mother? And notice you have no attachment. You have no feelings at all. You're just not interested because you just inhabit another way of life that you don't relate to, doesn't confront you, doesn't threaten you. You're just not interested in people like that. Notice the lack of equanimity. And again, apply the antidotes. They, like me, are wanting happiness and the causes of happiness. They, like me, suffer. Notice all the similarities and all the similarities with your friend, and start to equalize them. And then float that enemy in, or that hostile person, and look at them and think of all the reasons why you dislike them. There may be very good reasons, but go beyond. Go to the roots of your Buddhist practice, recognizing that in their place, maybe you would have been the same. They're limited. You have strong aversion for them, maybe. But break that down until you can feel at least equanimity, impartiality, recognizing the sameness amongst the other beings sitting in front of you. And then you can gradually fill the space with as many sentient beings as you wish. Very important then to think, without this enemy, this stranger, this friend, I could not have developed equanimity. A complete interdependence of sentient beings on each other. And you are indeed empty of inherent existence, as are all these beings. There is no self-existent I anywhere to be found. And the nature of your meditation is also empty. And gradually dissolve all these beings into your heart. And just rest there in your emptiness and your bliss. Let's just for the final time say the prayer before we dedicate the minutes. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were to abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. May they abide in this way. I shall cause them to abide in this way. Guru Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings had happiness and its causes. May they have these. I shall cause them to have these. Guru Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were free from suffering and its causes. May they be free. I shall cause them to be free. Guru Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were never parted from fortunate rebirths and liberation's excellent bliss. May they never be parted. I shall cause them never to be parted. Guru Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. Okay, and let's just organically think for a moment of dedicating the virtues, dedicating the merit of this course on the 4 immeasurables, so that you may be able to quickly become enlightened for the benefit of all beings. Just really feel that in your heart, that you go away with a deeper, a greater understanding that is meaningful to you and for your whole community. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you up
Thank
there.
you, everyone. Thank you, Ondy. Thank you, Sailor.